One gift about Taurus that I've noticed is wherever Taurus falls short, they make up for in other areas. I've also noticed that Tauruses seem like they're not really aware, maybe spiritually for some, unless they're like extremely religious. But I do notice that Taurus is pretty humble. They're also usually very specialized in something, like they're very knowledgeable about something. They also can be pretty chill, but I've also noticed that when they are in their own comfort of their own home or their own environment, they can be a little bit controlling. So that can really be an issue because it's ruled by Venus, and Venus is your environment and the people that are around you and how it feels to be around those people. And Taurus is going to be the first one to sit and relax and enjoy the creature comforts of that environment. So in that, they can be kind of magnetic. So they attract a lot of people. Taurus does rule the sign of rituals, doing things repetitively so that they continue to build upon another thing. That's one thing they have in common with Capricorn and Virgo, but they do things ritualistically. So when it comes to like creature comforts, they're going to do those things because that's part of their routine, is what makes them feel comfortable. So when it comes to spirituality, if a Taurus is woke, which usually Taurus is the most woke sign, but a Taurus that's not woke, that's your typical regular human that's kind of walking around unbeknownst, possibly like a NPC. Usually those people can become possessed easily, and a negative Taurus can become someone who is like greedy or hedonistic or just really hard to be around. They can be very narcissistic and controlling. It's very uncomfortable to be around. It pulls from that seventh house of Scorpio. It's ruled by Venus, so the second and the seventh house are gonna be highlighted when the Taurus is acting in its shadow side. When it's operating in its light side, we'll call that. It could be what I've mentioned about the rituals. Doing things that are divine and in alignment with God, because Taurus can represent, that higher knowledge or that higher wisdom or that higher education. Maybe even in school, Tauruses usually enjoy learning. They also like to talk a lot, so they may talk about what they have learned a lot to other people. It could be gossip, things that they may have learned from word of mouth. It's right next to Gemini. Tauruses can have Venus in Gemini. Venus doesn't go anywhere beyond 1 or 2 signs, either of the same sign, before or after of your zodiac sign. So if it has Venus in Gemini, it's going to like to talk. Taurus likes to talk regardless, but, they're pretty reserved. If it has Venus in Aries, they're going to be one that likes to exercise and be physically active. If it's Venus in Pisces, they may be a little bit more in tune with what I'm talking about as far as that spirituality. If it's a Venus in Cancer, they may focus more on creature comforts and being at home and with family. So you can deal with so many different types of Tauruses in that sense. They're going to play out those zodiac signs in that way. And they're usually going to be really good at one of those things, depending on where Venus is in their birth chart. That's why I said they're usually good at something, even if they fall short from something. That's why when you're around a Taurus, yes, it can be hard to be around them. And yes, they may get rigid in their ways, like they may believe that they're right a lot. And sometimes they are. You just got to really pay attention, to the things, the tangible results that they're getting. I also know that Tauruses can live a double life and they can really hide things from people. So you really got to pay attention. You got to be somebody who's keen and can catch on, because Taurus can do things the wrong way for a long time. And by the time you realize it, it's kind of too late. For example, a lot of Tauruses do have a tendency to take things off the street and bring them home because they like how that furniture looks. Like they may want to redo that piece of furniture, or they're like, why is that outside? That's an antique item, and next thing you know, they keep doing that for about a year or 3 years or 5 years and so on. And then you go see their house that they've chose to stay at because they love that house and it's cheap or affordable, and they've gotten comfortable to their neighbors and everything is predictable. But once you go in their house, it's full of junk, a negative Taurus. And then if you think about that polarity I was mentioning about Tauruses can be, they can attach entities to them just like Pisces. If they're not really woke, you go in their house, they can have a really messy house and it can just feel cluttered and smell bad. And a lot of entities, they love clutter. So yes, Taurus can manifest, but it can also manifest a lot of negativity around it too. That's why I mentioned it can be very uncomfortable. But if they were to go to work and be around other people, you wouldn't know that they're like that. You would think that Taurus has everything all together and things are good. But you go to their house and you find that they collect some type of trinkets or something that they're really into. They love collecting items. If you go to a Taurus's house, I guarantee you there's something that they're interested in, that they have a lot of or have a lot of knowledge about. So maybe by being around them, you would really benefit from something that they can do or they know a lot about. Or if it's just coming down to like physicality, I mean, I don't really need to express that. I mean, we all know a Taurus that looks good and then they just may do one thing. And just because they look good, that kind of affords them, access to things. That's obvious. I wasn't even trying to focus on that. But, I mean, that can be a trait of Taurus. Like, they may be kind of down to earth and boring, but they might look really good and it might be very peaceful. That could be one. Or you could be like a Taurus that just has money and you're good in bed, but everything else is not the greatest. So they may need help. So it's going to be hard to try to convince an older Taurus. It just depends. An older Taurus won't let you change too much of what they have control over unless they are getting something back in return. It's kind of hard to explain it. If you are dealing with a Taurus that doesn't have money, that's a red flag. But if you're dealing with a Taurus that has money, that's what I was talking about. It's kind of hard to convince them to, I don't know. Pay attention. If you see a Taurus and they're already kind of far along, you might as well go with their program. Not so much trying to change them. It's going to be really hard to try to change them. But in that, you're going to get something out of it. You're going to feel fed spiritually or mentally or emotionally. To say whether it's good or bad, I don't know. But that gift that Taurus has, they're going to make up for wherever they fall short. I will say another one could be that they are very much in tune with their five senses. You know what I mean? They can see something and feel like it's off just a little bit and go look at it and be like, yep, I knew that thing was missing. That's kind of like Virgo too. But Virgo's more so hyperfixated on everything. You know what I mean? They're going to be a neat freak. But Taurus is going to be like, man, this don't feel right. I know how my so-and-so usually is. This isn't right. One of them is missing. And then they'll recognize that it's off. So they're good in that sense if you need them to be in charge of something, and they have an affinity towards that thing. They're going to take care of that stuff for you. Or they'll be a good keeper of those things. They can also be a good keeper of knowledge and things in history. They're very much knowledgeable about old traditions because Taurus is a very traditional sign. So they can be into the occult. They can learn stuff the right way and they can be great teachers and they can keep that tradition going for years to come. So that's another way that they can add to value. But if you're a Taurus and you know that you're good at something but you fall short, comment below and let me know if you're actually comfortable mentioning that. It's always a give and take where they lack something but they make up for it in another way. All right.
Return this land, or suffer my curse.
What's your offer?
This night you will be visited by 3 plagues, each worse than the last. Return the slab.
Ha! Nice try, Professor.